Hi, I'm Justin.
Also, I hate the way my voice sounds, so if you can do whatever Photoshop does to voices, make me sound awesome.
And this is my lovely friend,
The beauty in the eyes of the beholder, and it's just about getting into the seat of being the beholder.
Hayley.
I don't think you have to be particularly perceptive. I just think you have to look up.
This podcast is mostly just her telling me stories.
If you expose yourself to the possibility that this might be really awkward, there can be something just really cool on the other side of it.
She thinks that her life and way of looking at things are
I thought I was kind of waiting on you. I thought you were getting your stuff ready. You're waiting on me?
pretty normal.
You got to edit out all the misinformation about the Amish.
Maybe you can relate
I would like a chance to re-sing the Amish Paradise.
if you want lighthearted stories
All right, you want to talk about goats?
and stream of consciousness.
I just woke up and needed some friends, and so I bought them.
Then you're going to like the Sunny Side Up podcast.
Sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up.
So, if you're at all like me, you may feel that you're living in a world that can be a bit overwhelming and confusing at times. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts, documentaries, docudramas, stories, and of just information in general. Between all of that and the social media and news, sometimes our brains can feel like they're on overload. Hayley and I hope that this podcast can be something of an antidote to all of that. Like little jello shots of joy and distraction. None of it is too serious or really too informative. Mostly it's just two friends who have conversational chemistry talking about whatever enters the minds of relatively ADHD people. We hope you enjoy. The Amish, though, I was just hearing about something literally in the last few days, so it is funny. Of course, we talk about the Amish a lot. The Amish get way more play.
They don't talk about us. Why we keep talking about them?
But somebody was saying that one of the genius things about the Amish, it was a podcast. It's coming back to me little by little. It was a podcast talking about how bad social media and our devices are for us. Like how incredibly, how much they change our physiology, okay?
There were some current reports about teenage depression and mental health issues. It was a big study. It was just recently released, and there's a lot of conversation about that exact topic right now.
Exactly, right. It's basically, this particular conversation went something like this. Hurry is potentially the biggest threat to our mental health and
Hurry?
Hurry,
not having enough time and being
not having
rushed.
enough time. The ADHD of go next thing. Sort of like that is one of the killers. It's not the only, but it's one of. And your phone trains you to constantly respond to every buzz, ding, beep, whatever. You've got to go look at it. You've got to do it right now. You've got to scroll to the next thing. It's there's never this set it down for a day or 8 hours and breathe. And I don't. So I'm not even, this is not me casting a stone. I am totally owned by my two phones. I have two of them. So I very much respond to them in that way. But anyway, so the idea is that before all of this, there was just less anxiety, less depression, all the stuff, partly from the rhythm it creates, because there's a rhythm to it of all of the information coming at you, the dinging, the emails, the social media updates, the notifications, the whatever. So any which way, they were talking about how brilliant the Amish were, because in their minds, what the Amish do is they actually sit back, their posture, and it comes from maybe a great Amish thinker or leader. And they basically said, we never adopt whatever the world adopts at the same time. We let them be the guinea pigs. Oh. Then we have a council of elders who consider, now that this has been in place for, fill in the blank, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, do we now, as a group of people, do we wish to adopt this? Because we already know, based on what it's done to society. Air conditioning would be a great example.
Air conditioning in their tractors.
Okay, in their tractor.
Yeah.
So they're apparently, when, what's a great Amish name? When
Jebediah?
Jebediah, thank you. When Jebediah turns on the air conditioner in his tractor, there's no long-term ill effects to
Or having a tractor, period. I think
Right.
that's what our conversation was, is are they even allowed to have tractors because it's technology? And in some circumstances. Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't realize that they were open to incorporating.
That's what this person said. Like,
New
this
things.
is just new information. Oh, I'll take this last thing because I've got to complete this little loop in my head. And this was cool. They said part of the reason why they've stuck with horse and buggy, according to this podcast, part of the reason why they've stuck with horse and buggy was because they decided that if you couldn't walk to your friend's house, they were too far away. So which this is the thing.
Community.
Thank you. Which in season 1, when I talked about one of the upsides of cults, it is built in, right. You have built-in village and community. However fractured, weird, fraught with like social hierarchies and all the rest of it is, those are all true in most cults, but you do have community. And we talked about this too. If hurry and loneliness or like whatever are like some of the biggest things facing American
mental health crisis drivers.
Yep. So there you go. Anyways.
Okay.
Loop completed.
Not for me. I am still in your loop. Number one, when you say the hurry and the anxiety and the phone, yes. I actually saw a preacher talk about that, but it was Stephen Furtick, and I know people are like, oh, mega church pastor, blah, but it was actually a good conversation. I think
you can wear $2,500 sneakers and still make good points.
He makes many good points,
I know.
I think.
What are you going to do? I know.
Yeah.
Don't
but
shoot the messenger.
His was like, you've got this, it's in your pocket, it's constantly updating, and you feel it's okay to disengage. But one of the 7 habits of highly effective people things.
Covey.
Yes, throwing
Another
back
book
to
I
my
didn't read.
90s upbringing.
Yeah.
One of the nuggets in there was prioritizing between the urgent and the important.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. Sometimes just removing the urgent from your plane of view so that you can focus on what you need to focus on, or not focus on anything, because rest is so important.
Right.
Okay, and on that note,
Sabbath,
another
Sabbath,
thing,
Sabbath,
yes,
Sabbath,
thank you.
Sabbath.
In rereading the Bible and studying and going through the podcast, the Bama podcast with
Yeah.
you, the
Shout out to
emphasis
Marty.
is, the importance of rest. That's an important lesson that's gotten cast aside, but the importance of community.
I know.
And of hospitality.
Well, and that's how my little Jewish, ancestors, and to this day, like even the Jewish folks that are not religious, in other words, somewhere between atheist to agnostic to just barely practicing whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing they do that like, me and my brothers have tried to figure out, like, why are Jews the most successful people group on the planet? And it is definitely not a conspiracy theory. Like the conspiracy theory falls apart as soon as you try to figure out why the tiniest group of people imaginable is so astoundingly successful. Like who would be incentivized to keep them the most right? It has got to be an intrinsic thing within that community. So they're like, okay, if we take away conspiracy theories and just like, let's just study them like you should any successful group of people, there's a reason why, right? Not a conspiracy. There's probably something you're doing. Let's learn from them, right? And different communities are successful in different ways.
Right.
I will say the Jewish folk are successful in business in an extraordinary way. There may be other areas they're not as successful in, but they're really great in business and inventions and things like that. So, me and my brothers, like, there's no science behind this, but I will battle on this one. We believe that their families staying together, linked very closely to the honoring of Shabbat every week,
Yes.
is probably the reason why. So they're forced to hang out for 24 hours, extended family, all together, and they can't do anything. And so for 24 hours, you get sloshed, you eat good food, and you talk about, you argue about Torah, sports, and politics. Or typically, from my Jewish friends I've talked to, that's what they kind of argue about.
are doing.
Yeah, but they're all forced to be together, and they do this year over year over year. Every week, they can't do anything for a full day. Like, if you honor that as a people, and you keep your family intact, how much would that boost your gross productivity?
Yeah, and depending on the family, sometimes it does you a good service for it to fall apart so you can get away from it. But
Yeah.
the
But this is extended family, though.
staying together provides some stability, and then
Yeah.
there's like built-in network of support, and I think you can really use that as a good launching pad in most regards. stability is gonna be beneficial. Shabbat, yeah, it's cool to kind of kick back with your extended family and talk and have those good times, but the importance of rest is so overlooked in the American landscape.
True.
And I say rest, recreation, play, whatever, where you're unplugging from trying to constantly be productive.
Yeah.
I think that would do everyone so much good. I don't understand why that's not a value that's been incorporated more, especially, like you said, whenever you see how well that community is using it. But going back to your point about the Amish living, if your friend is too far away to walk to their house, then they're too far away, which, no. I had to drive to get to your house. So I'm really glad that we're not sticking with that one.
Yeah.
Hello, lovely friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And it would mean the world if you would tell other people about this podcast and maybe even spam your social media accounts with just how much you're enjoying it. If you are, of course. Also, commenting and rating us on whatever platform you're downloading or streaming from is incredibly helpful to a little startup podcast like this one. On the other hand, if you are dissatisfied with your listening experience, please leave all of that hate on someone else's podcast. Just maybe to confuse them a little bit, right? But most of all, we hope you keep looking up and looking for the sunny side of life.